In the ancient legends of the Appalachian Mountains, people have long whispered about a strange and unsettling group known as the Moon-Eyed People. The name itself might sound like something drunken men would joke about, but anyone who has lived deep in those mountains knows the Moon-Eyed People are far more concrete and far more eerie than the stories suggest. According to legend, the Moon-Eyed People are small in stature, only reaching the chest of an adult human. Their skin is as pale as damp gray clay, and their thin limbs appear unnervingly stark under the moonlight. Even the way they move is unlike anything human. Their steps are impossibly light, so light that they don't make a single sound, not even when walking across layers of dry forest leaves. It's as if their feet never actually touch the ground. But the most chilling feature is their large, round eyes. These eyes have no visible pupils, just an even, lifeless gray-white. They don't blink, and they don't shift or track movement. They simply stare, fixed, empty, unchanging. Many witnesses have said that looking into those eyes doesn't feel like being observed. It feels like being seen through, as if those pupilless eyes could peer directly into the deepest part of your soul and read your most hidden memories and fears. In the history of the Cherokee, the oldest indigenous inhabitants of Appalachia, records of these mysterious beings date back centuries. According to their accounts, the Moon-Eyed People never appeared during the day, not even at dusk. They only emerge in the dead of night, when the moon is brightest. The forest is silent, and the air feels frozen in place, slipping soundlessly out from the shadows of the woods. The Cherokee also wrote clearly that, for reasons unknown, the Moon-Eyed People cannot withstand sunlight. When struck by strong light, they suffer so intensely they can barely breathe, which forces them to move only under the cover of night. Even more disturbing is the record stating that long before the Cherokee settled in the Appalachian region, the Moon-Eyed People had already been living there, perhaps for a very long time. In other words, the earliest inhabitants of the Appalachian Mountains may not have been humans at all, but these mysterious Moon-Eyed People. Cherokee legends even claim they built stone walls and circular stone fortresses, used both as dwellings and for defense against outsiders. For generations, these records were dismissed as mythology, until an archaeological discovery forced scholars to reconsider. Deep in the mountains of Alabama and Georgia lies an ancient stone wall approximately 270 meters long, known as the Fort Mountain Stone Wall. The wall has no structural pattern, no decorative elements, and does not belong to any known indigenous civilization. What troubles archaeologists even more is that no signs of settlements, farming tools, pottery shards, or daily life have been found near the wall. It's as if the people who built it never lived there in any way humans recognize. They came, yet left no trace of living. They existed, yet lacked any of the everyday markers of human civilization. And yet this aligns perfectly with the Cherokee descriptions. The Moon-Eyed People moved only at night. They did not light fires. They did not farm. They avoided contact with humans. They simply watched from deep within the forest, quietly hiding or guarding some unknown secret. While scholars continued debating whether the stone wall was truly a remnant of the Moon-Eyed People, an incident in the 21st century suddenly made the entire argument feel meaningless. On October 17, 2019, the morning fog in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains had yet to lift, and a set of GPS coordinates flickered 3 kilometers southeast of Fort Mountain. A 5-member civilian outdoor investigation team moved forward over damp beech leaves. The team leader, Hank Talley, stepped through the soft forest soil, his boots crushing the dark humus and kicking up thick brown mud. Grass seeds from the outskirts of Chattanooga, Tennessee still clung to his pant legs. 3 days earlier, they had departed from there, heading into the Appalachians in search of a rumored, undocumented, prehistoric stone wall, supposedly built by the Moon-Eyed People. The only local among them was their guide, Jimmy Laughlin, a weathered native elder with sun-browned skin and half a pinky missing on his left hand. He walked at the front with a faded canvas pack on his back, his cane tapping against the ground with a crisp, hollow echo in the morning mist. When the group reached a valley blanketed by dense hemlock trees, Laughlin suddenly froze, his cloudy eyes fixed on the vines draped across the valley entrance, and he swallowed hard, Adam's apple jerking. Then, with a faint tremor in his voice that wasn't easy to detect, Laughlin said to Hank, This is far enough. Any farther and you'll be in the Nightland. After sundown, that place doesn't belong to people anymore. Hank knelt down, pulled a geological survey map from his pack, and spread it on the ground. It was a copy he'd bought from the local historical society. On it were marked the exact locations of unusual stone formations noted by frontier settlers in the early 19th century. Hank found the marker for the strange stone structure, and it sat squarely inside the Nightland. He patted Laughlin on the shoulder and tried to reassure him. "We've brought everything we need. We'll build a campfire at night. We'll be fine." Laughlin frowned at Hank for several seconds, as if staring at a fool. Then he tapped the map with his cane and said in a low, stern voice, "Follow this creek straight. Do not enter the hemlock forest on the left, and if you hear a child crying, you turn back immediately." Before Hank could respond, Laughlin turned around and headed downhill. Within moments, his silhouette shrank into a tiny dark speck in the mist. After the guide left, Hank pulled out his phone, only to discover he had completely lost signal. He switched on his handheld GPS, but the signal bars flickered twice, then vanished, replaced by a row of garbled characters. But Hank didn't take this anomaly seriously. He simply assumed it was normal in deep mountains. So he gathered his gear and was the first to step into the valley. Inside the valley, the air felt noticeably colder. Layers of overlapping hemlock branches cast scattered shadows on the forest floor that looked like flickering, ghostly shapes. Before long, Milo Washington, the team's geology expert walking in the middle, stopped abruptly and crouched down to touch the leaf litter. He had found marks, compression trails across the leaves, but there were no animal tracks anywhere around them. Hank moved closer and examined the marks under the faint beams of light filtering through the canopy. They weren't hoof prints, nor were they the tread patterns of human boots. They looked more like something flat had slid or brushed across the surface. Elias Cole, the team's photographer, quickly lifted an infrared camera and scanned both the markings and the nearby trees. The screen displayed nothing but swaths of green vegetation, no heat signatures at all. The first day ended with an undercurrent of unease. They set up camp on a flat patch beside the creek. By the time the fire was burning, night had fully fallen. According to plan, Hank and Elias took the first watch. Milo and Petro would cover the second half of the night. As the flames crackled, Hank became aware that the surrounding forest was unnervingly silent. No owls, no insects, not even the whisper of wind through the leaves. Just as Hank was trying to understand the stillness, footsteps sounded from beyond the reach of the firelight. The steps were soft, like a child walking in soft-soled shoes, but carried a strange mechanical rhythm. Each interval between steps was perfectly identical, without the slightest deviation. Hank immediately grabbed his trekking pole, while Elias raised the infrared camera toward the sound. Suddenly, a blurry white shape flashed across the camera screen, small in size but moving as fast as a gust of wind. Elias broke into a cold sweat, nearly dropping the camera. Hank pressed a hand on his shoulder, signaling him to stay quiet, and slowly rose, staring into the direction where the white shape had vanished. Nothing but darkness. Only that strange, rhythmic footstep continued, pacing back and forth among the trees, never once approaching the fire. The stalemate lasted more than 10 minutes before the footsteps gradually faded into the forest. At dawn on the second day, Hank and the others discovered something even stranger around their campsite. 3 small cairns made of stacked black basalt stood in the clearing. Each stack consisted of 3 stones, with the top stone polished unnaturally smooth, and all 3 cairns were positioned to face their tents. Milo stepped forward to examine the soil beneath them, and quickly realized that the basalt wasn't native to the area. It looked more like volcanic rock transported from the opposite side of the mountain range. Then Elias noticed a faint trail of footprints on the ground beside the stone piles. The prints had extremely narrow toes, no trace of an arch, and the spacing between each step was very small, as if left by some kind of short, small creature. But what disturbed him most was the depth. The footprints were so shallow that they didn't match the weight of any known living being. Even a newborn child would leave impressions deeper than these. Milo frowned as he studied them, recognizing the same type of markings they had seen on the leaf litter when they first entered the valley. The strange atmosphere left the team uneasy and uncertain. It wasn't until Hank reassured and encouraged them that the others finally calmed down. After all, there was still no concrete evidence showing they were actually being watched by the legendary Moon-Eyed people. On the evening of the third day, they finally located the stone wall marked on the map, deep within the valley. The wall was built against the mountainside, constructed from massive slabs of greenish stone. Sections of the wall had collapsed long ago and were now covered in thick moss. Milo chipped off a small piece with his geological hammer and discovered numerous irregular carved marks beneath the moss. These lines were clearly not natural erosion. They appeared to be deliberate engravings. Some were curved, shaped like crescent moons. Others were stacked dots arranged in strange, unfamiliar patterns. Milo examined the symbols and immediately sensed that they weren't part of any Native American tradition. Indigenous carvings followed recognizable totemic patterns. These, however, looked more like some kind of record. That night was a full moon. Silvery light filtered through the trees and illuminated the wall, making the carvings unusually sharp and vivid. Elias set up his camera to film a time-lapse of the wall, while Hank and Petros scouted the area to find a suitable spot for setting up camp. Suddenly, Elias shouted from the other side of the stone wall. Hank rushed over and followed the direction Elias pointed. In the moonlit clearing, a small white figure darted across the ground, no more than 50 meters away. This time, the figure was clearer than what the infrared camera had captured the night before. It was short, about the height of a 7 or 8-year-old child, with pale, hairless skin covering its entire body. It moved with unnerving speed, skimming along the ground like a startled rabbit, yet its posture was unmistakably humanoid. Milo hurried over with the thermal imager, and the image on the screen made everyone gasp. The small white figure's body temperature registered at only about 5 degrees Celsius, nearly identical to the surrounding air, and far, far below that of any warm-blooded creature. "That's impossible," Milo stammered, his voice trembling. "No warm-blooded animal can have a body temperature that low." Hank signaled everyone to stay still, then slowly moved toward the small figure. The figure seemed to sense his approach. It stopped, turned around, and faced him. Even though the distance between them wasn't far, the mist hanging in the forest made it difficult for Hank to see clearly. Still, he could vaguely make out a pair of unusually large eyes on its head, glowing a ghastly white under the moonlight, without pupils, sclera, or irises. They looked like two smooth white river stones embedded in its face. When Hank was about 20 meters away, the figure suddenly bolted, darting into the trees with such incredible speed that it left only a streak of white behind. Hank chased after it immediately, but it was already too late. However, at the spot where it disappeared, he found a palm-sized fragment of carved stone. The material was the same basalt as the stone piles they had found around their campsite, and on its surface was a crescent-shaped engraving. The edges were razor-sharp, as if it had broken off from a larger tool. Hank slipped the fragment into an evidence bag, but the moment his fingertips brushed it, a bone-deep chill shot through him, unnaturally cold, even for a full moon night. That night, the mood around the campsite was heavier than ever. They set their tents beside the stone wall, and the campfire burned hotter than it had the previous 2 nights. The 4 men took turns keeping watch, each gripping either a trekking pole or a geological hammer. Before turning in, Hank checked every piece of equipment. The infrared cameras were positioned in all 4 directions toward the surrounding forest, and the video camera was aimed directly at the stone wall, ready to capture anything unusual. Lying inside his tent, listening to the crackling fire outside, his mind replayed the image of the pale figure. Its ghost-white skin, oversized eyes, unnatural speed, and that crescent-marked stone shard. He suddenly remembered what the tribal elder had once told him about the Moon-Eyed people. They lived deep in the mountains, their eyes bright as the moon, only coming out at night. When they encountered unfamiliar humans, they would drag them into underground tunnels. He had always dismissed it as folklore. Now every word felt disturbingly plausible. Around 3 in the morning, the silence was shattered by a short, sharp cry from Elias, followed by the sound of something heavy hitting the ground. Hank was the first to burst out of his tent. The campfire outside had already gone out, leaving only a pile of dim, red embers. Elias's tent flap was wide open, but the tent was empty. On the ground outside, Hank noticed clear drag marks. The grass was flattened and the soil was mixed with strands of white fibers, the same material as the straps on Elias's backpack. The trail of drag marks led toward the trees behind the stone wall, where a broken backpack strap hung from a branch, the cut so clean it looked like it had been sliced by something razor sharp. Hank immediately grabbed the infrared camera set up beside the tent and rewound the footage. On the screen, the campfire suddenly went out as if blown by a strange burst of air. In the darkness, a small white figure rushed toward Elias's tent, moving with such lightness that it didn't make a sound. It extended a long, thin arm, grabbed Elias's backpack strap, and dragged him toward the woods. Elias let out a startled cry while struggling, but his voice quickly faded. When the figure passed directly in front of the infrared lens, its appearance became unmistakably clear, a pair of enormous, pupilless white eyes that took up nearly half its face, glowing eerily in the infrared. No expression, just a cold, empty stare. "We have to get Elias back," Hank said, his voice firm. He knew there was no backing down now. Hank also explained that Elias's drag marks were still fresh, so they might still be able to catch up if they moved quickly. Milo and Petro didn't object. They packed only the essential gear and enough water and food to last 2 days. Hank also left a note inside the tent, writing down their destination and the location where they planned to regroup. In case they ran into danger as well, at least the rescue team would have a clue to follow. The drag marks extended along the stone wall all the way to the cliff face, then disappeared at a crack hidden beneath a tangle of vines. The crack was narrow, just wide enough for one person to duck through, and the vines around it had clearly been pulled away, revealing a pitch-black opening inside. Milo shined a flashlight into the gap and saw that the walls were unusually smooth, not like a natural fissure, but more like a man-made passage. Hank stared at the opening and felt certain this could be where the Moon-Eyed people lived, and that Elias had most likely been dragged inside. So Hank told Petro to turn on the infrared camera, raised his flashlight, and bent down to enter first. The passageway was extremely narrow, only big enough for a single person to pass through at a time. The walls were covered with the same carved patterns they had seen on the stone wall outside. After walking for about 50 meters, the passage suddenly opened up into a massive stone chamber. The ceiling rose high above them, and natural cracks allowed moonlight to shine in, illuminating the cavern. That was when they noticed that the ground was littered with stacks of stones, identical to the ones they'd found around camp. Between those piles were many shallow footprints, clear signs that this was a gathering place for the Moon-Eyed people. Hank shouted Elias's name, the sound echoing through the chamber, but there was no response. On Petro's infrared camera, however, several white silhouettes suddenly appeared, scattered throughout the cavern, close enough to watch but keeping their distance. Their shapes matched what they had seen before. Short, small figures with extremely low body heat, making no sound, simply observing from the darkness. Milo tightened her grip on the geology hammer. She noticed that although the figures were eerie, they didn't seem aggressive, just cautious, keeping their distance and watching. Hank signaled for everyone to move slowly, inching toward the deeper part of the chamber. A narrower passage lay ahead, and Elias's drag trail continued in that direction. But as they passed one of the stone piles, Milo accidentally stepped on a loose stone slab beside it. The slab sank slightly beneath her foot. Almost instantly, the white silhouettes shifted. They suddenly surged toward them, moving much faster than before, their pale, pupil-less eyes filled with alertness and hostility. Hank realized something was very wrong. He shouted for everyone to get out immediately. But instead of retreating, Hank sprinted toward the deeper passage. Petro didn't run toward the exit either. He pointed his camera at Hank and followed close behind, recording the horrifying sight of dozens of empty white eyes glowing in the dark, like a swarm of ghosts chasing them. Milo was running last in the group when she suddenly tripped over a stone. A moon-eyed figure was about to reach her. She grabbed a sharp stone fragment from the ground and hurled it at the nearest one. The stone struck its shoulder, and the creature paused just long enough for Milo to scramble back to her feet and keep running. The passage grew steeper and steeper, as if it were slanting down into the earth. Hank, running at the front and holding his flashlight, swung it slightly by accident and suddenly saw Elias at the bottom of the cavern. Steadying the flashlight, he pointed it downward. Not far ahead, the passage dropped off into a ledge, a vertical break at least 10 meters deep. Elias's body lay motionless in the darkness below, surrounded by a pool of blood. Hank shouted Elias's name into the abyss, but there was no response. When Milo caught up, she struck the ledge wall with her geology hammer and found the rock face smooth and polished, making it nearly impossible to climb. They tried lowering a climbing rope, but it wasn't long enough to reach the bottom. Behind them, the moon-eyed people were drawing closer and closer. Hank knew they couldn't hesitate any longer. Elias was almost certainly beyond saving, and if they stayed even a moment more, they would all be trapped. So Hank made the immediate decision to retreat the way they came. Milo and Petro were unwilling but understood there was no other choice. They turned and ran toward the passage entrance, but to their surprise, the moon-eyed people stepped aside, not blocking their path. They simply followed from behind at a steady measured distance, as if driving them out. By the time the three of them burst out of the stone chamber, dawn was already breaking. They didn't dare stop. Following the route they had used to enter the mountains, they ran as fast as they could toward the camp. But the moon-eyed people continued trailing them, keeping the same unsettling distance, not too close, not too far, until they reached the stone wall ruins where their camp had been. Even then, the moon-eyed figures lingered around them, still herding them away. Hank understood their situation clearly now. If they stayed here any longer, something terrible might happen. So the three immediately abandoned the camp and sprinted toward the mouth of the valley. They ran for an entire day and night. Only when they finally saw the valley marker did their strength give out, and they collapsed on the ground. By then, the moon-eyed people were nowhere to be seen. When the rescue team from the foothills found them, the three were on the verge of collapse, covered in mud and broken branches, still clutching the camera and the basalt fragment. As soon as they recovered enough strength, Hank contacted the authorities, hoping the police could save the severely injured Elias. After receiving the call, the police launched a large-scale search and rescue mission. But in that valley, aside from the remains of the team's camp and the stone wall ruins, they found no trace of Elias or the moon-eyed people. Even the drag marks in the entrance to the stone chamber had vanished as if they had never existed. No matter how thoroughly they searched, those things were simply gone. Hank provided the police with the infrared footage and dozens of photos, but the blurry images and bizarre content made the authorities question their authenticity. In the end, the official conclusion was that a team member went missing in the mountains, possibly the victim of a wildlife attack. Everything involving the moon-eyed people was sealed off and never made public. Later, Hank donated the basalt fragment to the local Natural History Museum, labeling it as an unknown volcanic rock fragment. Milo, on the other hand, uploaded the edited video clips online, instantly sparking a huge controversy. Some claimed it was an elaborate hoax, others firmly believed it documented an unknown creature, and still others connected it to the long-standing local legend of the moon-eyed people, insisting that the footage captured the very beings from the tales. The debate never ceased, and the valley known as the Nightland was officially designated a restricted zone, forbidding anyone from entering. Since then, Hank never returned to the Appalachian Mountains. Occasionally, he would take out that geological survey map and stare blankly at the coordinates of the Stonewall ruins. Every full moon, memories of the stone chamber would flood his mind, the sight of those pupilless white eyes haunting him. As for what the moon-eyed people truly are, why they reside in these deep mountain stone chambers, and what the eerie stone piles and carvings signify, no one could provide an answer. As the moon-eyed people legend grew increasingly exaggerated, the scientific community offered its own explanations. The mainstream stance has consistently been that anomalous phenomena can be attributed to conventional cognitive biases. But such reasoning often collapses in the face of specific evidence. The most commonly cited explanation is misidentification of animals. Research teams compared nighttime footage of raccoons, lynx cubs, and foxes with the earliest moon-eyed people eyewitness descriptions. They found that a raccoon's facial contours under moonlight can create the illusion of large eyes due to the contrast of black and white fur. Lynx cubs, meanwhile, roughly matched the small stature mentioned in reports. However, problems immediately arise. All reliable eyewitness accounts emphasize the moon-eyed people's upright walking. Even startled quadrupeds can briefly stand on two legs, but their posture and gait differ fundamentally from the steady bipedal locomotion described. More crucially, the size data doesn't add up. Adult raccoons rarely exceed 80 centimeters in length, whereas Hank's sightings suggest a height between 110 and 120 centimeters, well beyond the size range of commonly found small mammals in the region. Another theory points to the historical presence of a Shawnee branch in the Appalachians. This tribe had nighttime ritual traditions, which some suggest could have been misinterpreted as sightings of a non-human group, the Moon-eyed people. But this theory cannot explain one core characteristic: their fear of light. No human tribe, regardless of custom, develops a physiological aversion to light. Every eyewitness report emphasized the Moon-eyed people's intense reactions to exposure, curling up, retreating rapidly into darkness. Behaviors more consistent with instinct than cultural practice. The more detailed the scientific explanations become, the more apparent their limitations. It's like using precise instruments to measure a shifting cloud of mist. Each data point captures only an instant of form, never the full essence. Those overlooked contradictions ultimately become part of the mystery, growing ever more obscure under the light of reason. Compared to the caution of the scientific camp, conspiracy theorists present a bolder and more direct perspective. They argue that the Moon-eyed people are not merely legends or misidentifications, but rather the remnants of a prehistoric human branch, an ancient group entirely separate from modern humans. While this idea may seem far-fetched, it surprisingly aligns with biological principles. Proponents of this view suggest that not all human lineages in evolution chose environments exposed to sunlight. Some early humans, in order to avoid predators or extreme climates, may have retreated into underground cave systems, beginning a prolonged subterranean existence. Long-term life in caves would naturally drive the development of adaptive physiological traits consistent with the evolutionary patterns observed in cave-dwelling species. The Moon-eyed people's nocturnal behavior is clearly a direct result of this underground environment. In perpetual darkness, the distinction between day and night becomes meaningless, so their activity patterns naturally inverted compared to surface humans, resulting in a daytime rest, nighttime activity habit. Their pale skin, meanwhile, is the outcome of pigment loss. In an environment without sunlight, melanin, used to block ultraviolet radiation, becomes unnecessary and gradually fades over evolutionary time, a phenomenon similarly observed in cave fish, cave bats, and other subterranean species. The formation of their large, round eyes also has a scientific basis. Cave animals often develop larger eyeballs and more specialized retinal rod cells to capture visual information in dim light. In some species, eyes can occupy up to a third of the skull. The Moon-eyed people's oversized eyes are likely a visual adaptation from long-term underground living, allowing them to see clearly by moonlight while making them highly sensitive to bright light, as they cannot constrict their pupils. This explains their pronounced photophobia. As for their unique architectural abilities, researchers have discovered man-made stone piles in certain Appalachian caves. These piles are neither the work of modern humans nor naturally occurring. Their construction is simple yet orderly. This aligns with the theory of the Moon-eyed people as a prehistoric human branch. If they had inhabited underground environments for tens of thousands of years, it is plausible that they would acquire basic construction skills to modify their living spaces. This hypothesis undoubtedly challenges traditional views of human evolution and is therefore considered heretical by mainstream scholars. Yet its ingenuity lies in explaining all the core characteristics of the Moon-eyed people while remaining consistent with known biological theories. While no fossils or concrete evidence currently support this idea, there is also nothing that can definitively disprove it. After all, the Appalachian underground cave system extends over 3,000 kilometers, with more than 90% still unexplored, leaving open the possibility that traces of an entirely different civilization may remain hidden in the darkness. In fact, in indigenous legends around the world, the Moon-Eyed people are not a mysterious symbol unique to the Appalachian Mountains, but rather a recurring motif of nocturnal dwarf tribes found across different civilizations. Though these stories are separated by thousands of miles, they seem to describe the same phenomenon in different ways. For example, European legends of night elves bear an astonishing resemblance to the Moon-Eyed people. In Irish folklore, the Duishiya lion are described as a pale-skinned, under 1 meter tall group that only emerges at night. Like the Moon-Eyed people, they dwell in caves deep in the forest and fear sunlight. Similarly, Scottish tales of the Brownie mention mysterious beings with owl-like large eyes that allow them to see clearly in darkness. If a human spots them, they instantly vanish into cracks in the stone. On the American continents, indigenous legends portray these underground dwarfs with even richer detail. The Iroquois Joga are called forest guardians, small in stature, skilled at digging caves, and most notably, having eyes that glow in the dark. The Navajo Shaneka are described as little people living underground, hiding during the day and appearing only at night. They are neither friendly nor overtly aggressive toward humans. Even in the Arctic, Inuit legends tell of shadow people who emerge during the polar night. Their eyes are adapted to extreme darkness, while their bodies cannot withstand sunlight. What is most striking is that these legendary groups, from Europe, the Americas, to the Arctic, share 3 core traits: small stature, nocturnal behavior, and distinctive eye features, despite having no historical or cultural contact. Scholars generally agree that legends often have roots in real phenomena. When isolated cultures independently produce similar stories, coincidence alone is an inadequate explanation. As these fuzzy contours from distant regions gradually align with the image of the Moon-Eyed people, they add a deeper historical weight to the mystery. Today, the Appalachian nights feel unusually heavy. When the forest falls asleep, only the wind weaves through the trees. On nights when the moon is fullest, the clear moonlight illuminates things usually hidden in darkness. If you happen to find yourself in the woods at that moment, try turning off your flashlight and letting go of all distractions, standing quietly in place. At first, you will hear only your own breathing and heartbeat. Then from afar, the call of an owl, the rustle of squirrels on branches. But soon you may sense a subtle shift. The air seems to grow quieter, and even the wind slows its pace. At that moment, you might notice a faint reflection in a nearby thicket. It is not glaring like a lamp, nor flickering like fireflies. Instead, it is a steady, cold light with a subtle warmth. It gazes at you silently in the darkness, without hostility, without curiosity, only with a timeless calm, as if observing a stranger in the neighborhood.